Time for Media Watch now, and James Creedon is with us in the studio. Hi there, James.
Hi, Laura.
And first of all, you've been looking at the Boris Johnson buzz. As expected, he has made it through to the final to become the next Prime Minister of Britain.
That's right. So a lot of comments on social media, people following all of that. It was almost like a football match or betting or something. Everybody looking at the narrowing down of the field. Boris Johnson, can anything stop him becoming Prime Minister, is the Huffington Post headline. The short answer to that is probably not. And you had various people sort of following, tracking things, and, you know, just two of them left, because of course the field was whittled down today from 4 to 2. This was the New York Times explaining for people not following it so closely that it's between Jeremy Hunt, the mild-mannered Foreign Secretary, and Boris Johnson, less mild-mannered, his bombastic predecessor, as they're calling him. Boris has many more votes. Boris had more votes than the votes for Jeremy and Michael added together, which makes it look very likely that he will be Britain's next Prime Minister, unless he throws it away by saying or doing something really bizarre in the meantime. And I suppose you could say that that's possible, right?
Well, it's not as if he's never said anything offensive before, but there he is. He's still number one choice of the Conservative Party.
Even today, I saw people sharing online. You'll remember
this is really funny.
You'll remember this from earlier this week when there was the debate.
Boyzone reunion ever.
That's right, and it was referred to as "take twat," which I have to say, I did think that was very funny.
I'm not sure you're allowed to say that on the television.
Maybe not. But in any case, after that debate, his mic was left on. Boris Johnson's mic was left on, and it emerged that while he was speaking to the other candidates, you see, he has said that October 31st is his absolute date for Brexit, when he's negotiating, if he becomes Prime Minister, with Brussels. But then, you see, people doubt that, because when his mic was left open, what he said was, "You see, chaps, we don't disagree on that much." And Michael Gove retorted, "Dates, Boris, we disagree on the dates. These are the dates for Brexit." But Boris replied to him and shrugged. Hardly. In other words, what he's saying publicly and what he's saying privately seems to differ. This is also what Bloomberg has been reporting in this piece here, saying the frontrunner, who has avoided public scrutiny more than other candidates, hasn't spelled out how he would react if the EU rejects his bid to renegotiate the deal. And, you know, this has led journalists at Bloomberg to say, depending on what MP you ask, you're getting a sort of a different perspective on what Boris's position is.
He's telling everybody what they want to hear.
He's fudging his language a bit, which the one remark I would make on that is, if he does have to negotiate later, maybe he needs to keep his cards close to his chest. Perhaps it's not entirely newspeak and fudging of language. Perhaps it's also strategy. Although, who knows? It's kind of reminding me of another politician a bit further away.
Oh, really? Which one? Yeah, of course, obviously. All right, let's...
Can you trust what he says? Maybe
let's move to... here in France,
yes,
somewhat chauvinistic coverage of the Women's World Cup, which is a shame because France is, of course, hosting the tournament, which has been a great success.
That's right. This is a news report. We'll show you an extract in a sec from the lunchtime news on TF1, which is the biggest network here in France. Let's take a look at their coverage of the Women's World Cup.
Avec des gestes si délicats, au bout de doigts si fins, on peut comprendre que certains rêveraient d'être à la place de la balle. Mais l'essentiel est ailleurs, dans ce jeu léger de jambes, pour faire, comme les garçons, du tricot sur la pelouse. Une maille à l'endroit, une maille à l'envers.
Wow.
So comparing women's football to knitting, you know, of course, and the gentle gestures, etc., etc. So I think what they were going for was, this is a little bit funny and ironic, but actually it just
a bit saucy.
But it just came across as full-on sexist. Yeah. And so lots of...
Doesn't work in 2019.
No.
1979 maybe, but 2019
or even earlier again. And I think what a lot of people were saying is, how did this get through the vetting process, the editorial process at TF1? So a lot of people were saying... a lot of people were saying, gosh, they're just stuck in a 50s time warp. This is unbelievable. Now, the journalist in question did react because it got such a lot of criticism on the TV show Quotidien. He said that he was devastated by the reaction, but that there was no real apology, and he just said he felt that it was just a bit of a failure the way it came across. Now, the term tricot or tricoter is actually a technical term used in football, which means knitting, and it can actually be used. He said, I also used that term when I was referring to men's football, but I guess, you know, it does need more.
Well, it was more the talking about the dainty fingers and the lovely legs and all the rest of it, I think.
It had a slightly mocking and contemptuous
and
tone.
Creepy.
Yes. Now, There is one final add-on to this. The French archives, l'INA, they got on board. This is a French National Archives, TV and radio archives, I should add. And they dug this out. It's funny because I was saying yesterday when I saw this, God, this is like a 1950s time warp. And that's basically what the people who run the French TV archives said. They were like the same cliches when you're covering female football, women's football, in 2019 and 1955. Let's play a clip, actually, from... We don't have the audio, but I'll explain. I think we do have the audio. But this is a 1950s clip showing football, right? And just to give you a sense of what the actual narrator is saying here, he's talking about the female footballers being like ballerinas, and then at the end, as they're walking off the pitch there, they walk off, he said, and now they're off back home to do the housework.
All right, we can forgive that. It's black
because
and white.
Because it's 1955.
1950s, but come on, it's 2019.
What they were saying is basically the coverage in 2019 is actually a little bit too close to the 1950s coverage.
Maybe they should actually watch a match and see how fantastic these footballers are.
That's right. Athletes.
Right.
Athletes.
Thank you. James Creedon there
Thanks, Laura.
with Media Watch.